And welcome back, guys. I got back from the European Team Chess Championship yesterday after a full night of not sleeping and traveling from Batumi, Georgia to Vienna. But now I'm back and I have some pretty exciting news, which is that I won the Modern Chess Autumn Chess Challenge. For some of you, you might be asking, what is he talking about? Modern Chess, which is a website similar to something like Chessable, for example. They offer chess courses mostly on theory, but also like on opening theory, but also they have many courses on middle game, end game, and all those other things, which are also kind of important if you want to learn how to play chess better. But anyway, they have this website, which, by the way, is great. They offer a lot of great courses there, which are also more affordable to some other websites, which is another great factor. And they started this challenge, the so-called Autumn Modern Chess Challenge. And it was kind of a knockout tournament with chess course authors. You can kind of say that, which is something that has never been done before. And that was also one of the reasons why I wanted to join it, because it's simply a great concept and I really love what the guys of Modern Chess are doing. And it's a very interesting thing to do. And therefore I joined. And I had 7 other opponents. The funny thing was that I was actually the lowest rated player of all of them. So many super strong grandmasters. I think the one with the highest rating is Dardha from Belgium, who I've also participated now in the second stage, which brings me to the whole setup of the event. So in the first round, we had a subject which was picked for us. It was to find a repertoire against the London and the Jobava London from the black side, where I recommended lines which you can also find on their website. By the way, I will link all of the courses in the video description down below. And in this first stage, we had to make a repertoire on the London and the Jobava London from the black side. I picked some pretty interesting lines there. Some of the other guys picked some even more interesting lines, if I'm fully honest with that. But it was simply a clash of styles, basically. I always had the idea in mind that I want to make my repertoires easy to learn and nothing too engine-orientated, that the lines are just not so forcing, which is generally also my approach if I analyze lines for myself, that it should be somewhat easily digestible and also more practical in some sense. Yeah, so that was the first stage, and in this first stage, only 3 players advanced, and how it worked was that everyone can buy the courses there and then vote which one is their favorite. And therefore, Dardha got the first place in the first stage, I got second place, and Gavrilescu got third place, actually shared together with Grandmaster Fier from Brazil, of course, from Brazil. Anyway, David managed to get to the next round because they had some internal votings there, and in the end, he was picked to go to the next round. And the next round was what we're talking about now. It was the 3 of us, so Dardha, Gavrilescu, and myself, competing against each other to find a repertoire against the Catalan. And to keep it short now, this was the round I managed to win, and therefore I am the winner of this whole challenge. So in the first stage, some people got knocked out. In the second stage, already the winner was decided. Hopefully, I managed to make it sort of clear. You can find all of the lines also in the Jobava London in the video description down below. You can purchase the courses there. I'm not getting anything from them as a reward for making this video. I just wanted to make a video about it myself, just because it's very interesting. I love what the guys are doing, and you should definitely check out their website therefore. But what I will do is blend in one video now of the second stage, where I made the repertoire on the Catalan. And it's the first video of, in total, 3 videos, if I'm not mistaken now. I think it's 3, but let me check just to make sure. So we have the overview video, which is the one you're going to see now in some time. Then we have part 2. It's actually 3 videos in total. We have part 2, which goes into the first stage of the line a bit more. And part 3, which also goes a bit deeper. Part 1 is just the overview, which you're going to see. And both part 2 and part 3 are just going deeper into the lines. That was kind of my setup, how I wanted to structure it. We could choose ourselves, we just needed to provide 3 videos, but we could choose ourselves how it's going to be structured. I wanted to do it like this, that we have one overview video with which it's probably already possible to get a good game preparation for one game, which I think is a quite nice thing to do. If you just have this one video, you can watch it, you can review the file, kind of like a summary, and then you will be sort of ready to grasp the general things of the line. So that was the most important thing for now. Again, you can purchase the courses on the Modern Chess website. I will link it down below. Also, my full course now, this is only the overview video which you're seeing, and there are 2 more videos on the website, and of course also the PGN files, which are always distributed by them as well. That's another thing I really appreciate about Modern Chess. When you buy the courses, you immediately get the PGN files, which is extremely convenient for a professional chess player on many websites, which is also extremely understandable. They don't always provide them because then many people obviously are gonna just send them to your friends and not as many people are gonna buy the course, but still it's extremely convenient for the customer. So that's another very nice thing of them to do. Final words, I really want to say also big congrats to all of the other participants. We always went through all of the lines which were given by the players in a live stream, which was also today, just a few minutes before I record this. I'll also link that in the video description down below. It was like a stream where we talked about the lines. Also, Alexei Dreyev, actually, the strong Russian grandmaster, gave his own expert opinion on the lines, which was also very interesting for the players to see as well. So final words, congrats to all of the other players, also the ones that got knocked out in the first stage. I saw all of their analysis as well, and anyone could have advanced, anyone could have won it. I'm of course happy that I was able to be the person being the lowest rated opponent, the lowest rated player in the whole section, but just wanted to say all of the other guys did a great job as well, and please check out their work for sure. So that was it from me now, and now I'll blend in the overview video of my full Catalan repertoire from the black side. Enjoy. Oh, and by the way, guys, I wanted to tell you about quite a nice anecdote quickly about my Jobava London repertoire, which I did. So this, as you can see here, is the line I'm recommending in this Autumn Chess Challenge for the black side against the Jobava London. Let us see how we get there. So Jobava London starts here after bishop f4. My recommendation is a6, stopping knight b5. e3 is always played, and now my recommendation was the move h6. And well, I will not go into many specifics of the line. The idea is just in general, if white goes knight f3, then we can go bishop g4 and we can activate this often passive bishop on c8 in the Jobava London. Now, the cool thing about this is that the revelation of who is going to pass to the second round, this stream, which you can find on the Modern Chess YouTube channel, was while I was at the Austrian training camp with my fellow colleagues from the Austrian national team, and both the head coach Borki Pedojevic and our longtime Austrian #1 Markus Raga watched this kind of revelation who is gonna pass to the next round, and there they were quickly talking about. Alexei Dreyev was one of them, Basso Pierluigi, all of the guys from Modern Chess were there, and briefly talked about my recommendation and the ideas that after knight f3, bishop g4 is going to come. Now we are at the European Team Chess Championship. It was just a couple of days ago. I got home 2 days ago. Marcos had exactly this position on the board from the black side. We played a very important match against Montenegro, and his opponent played knight c3. Marcos was thinking a little bit, so this is what came. He played d5. It came from another move order, bishop f4, and then he went quickly for the move a6. His opponent played e3, and then he thought, well, I saw Felix's video Felix's idea from the Autumn Chess Challenge, and he just went for the move h6 anyway, which was even funnier because I was sitting next to him and I was watching his game. I had to smile a little bit while he went for that, and he even won a nice game there in the end against Grandmaster Kosic. I also managed to win my game. You can find that on my channel. I did some recaps during the European Team Chess Championship. I think it was in round 7 or 8. I will have an info card up there for you to check out. Marco's game also continued knight f3, bishop g4, h3, which was also given in my file, take, e6, and now his opponent played bishop d3, and after c5 he equalized easily and later managed to win the game, which was contributing to 2-2 against Montenegro for us. I also won my game that day. Anyway, that was just a quick anecdote from the Autumn Chess Challenge, and now let's go back to the video. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my personal recommendation for the Catalan for the Autumn Challenge. Thank you, first of all, for having the trust in me and voting for me to advance to the next stage. Hopefully, I will not disappoint you. And I've prepared a specific line against the Catalan. And I would like to start off by saying that I've structured it into 3 videos, as did the other participants as well, but my structure is as follows. Now, the video you're seeing currently is just kind of an overview or intro video where I'm going to give you just a small bit of information about the line, which I believe would already be enough to play it for one game and just to get an understanding of what I'm trying to say here and what are my recommendations and the general plans. And in the other videos, we're going to have a bit of a deeper dive into the main line first of all, and the other video is going to be about some of the sidelines. But I can already guess that you're curious on what actually is my recommendation. So the Catalan arises after d4, knight f6, or d4, d5, c4, e6, knight f3, knight f6. And if white now goes for the move g3. And what I would like to stress, the fact my recommended move, the move bishop e7, makes our life a lot easier when it comes to the move orders. I know that this was not specifically the task of this repertoire, but it's something which was always quite important to me, that if we can play this exact position after short castle, we don't really need to worry about many of white's move orders. For example, if white starts with knight f3 on the first move, now after d5, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, we can simply go for e6 and bishop e7 anyway, because if now white goes for c4, short castle, and d4, we are back to what we want. And I personally like to play, for example, the line bishop e4 check here, which is a great line. And I can imagine that some of the other players are going to recommend this line because it's a very solid and great line for black. But this, for example, does not work against the other move orders because now we cannot go for bishop b4 check. Of course, with those move orders, white does have a couple of extra options. To conclude the move order issues is that I just wanted to say if white goes for d3 here, short castle, knight bd2. Now I just want to say, which also perfectly goes hand in hand with my recommendation, which is the move a5 here. That also against the King's Indian attack, I myself played the move a5 against Croatia's #1 Ivan Šarić, where I managed to make a draw, and it just goes nicely with this repertoire that this move a5 can be played in many of the different lines. But let's get back to what was actually the task for this repertoire, which is this position. And now my recommendation is the move a5. I guess if you haven't seen that move before, it might look a little bit strange because we're not really doing anything in the center, but it has also been played by Magnus before. He likes those pawn advances on the side. He also likes to move with the h-pawn pretty often, and especially thanks to AlphaZero, it has become sort of a more accepted way of playing chess. And here specifically, the idea is that first of all, we just want to gain space on the queen side. That's pretty important because white often in the Catalan wants to go b3, followed by bishop b2, Fier encadering the bishop. And now with the move a5 being played, we are ready to immediately challenge this white plan by going a4 ourselves. Another plan is to kind of stay flexible, and very often the move a5 is going to be very beneficial for us depending on how white is going to develop. White has 2 main moves, I would say. The first one is queen c2, which is going to be covered in a separate video. Queen c2 is probably the main move here. Therefore, I plan to make a separate video for this move specifically. And the other chapter is going to focus on knight c3 and other side moves as well, even though I would say knight c3 is, apart from queen c2, the main move in this position. After knight c3, another very important thing is that here we do go for c6. Now, you might ask, Felix, why can't we go c6 immediately? Of course, that's a very serious line as well, but just to argue on why we go a5 and then c6, the important thing is that in the line with c6 here, white doesn't really go for knight c3, but instead has the plan to go queen c2 and then very often go knight bd2 followed by e4. Because if he puts the knight to c3, then he always needs to worry about us taking on c4. And that's also kind of the same thing here, that after we go a5 and he would go for knight c3, now we go for c6 and white always needs to watch out for us just capturing on c4. And the knight is generally not placed on c3 as well as it would be on d2. And apart from that, a5 is going to be a very beneficial move for us, as we're going to see in a second. White has a couple of different ways to develop. Generally, if the knight is on c3, he would like to play with the move knight d2 to prepare the move e4 on the next move. And now we have two possibilities. b5 generally is a very important idea to keep in mind here, which is, however, not my main recommendation. We are sacrificing a pawn here, and it is perfectly playable to play like this, and black gets sufficient compensation, but I don't really see the need to play like this. Instead, I just like the move knight bd7, since anyway the move e4 is nothing really we should be that afraid of, because we can just capture and then immediately play in the center with f5, followed by e5. And why I did this arrow here with a5, the funny thing is that black can actually reach the same position with the pawn being on a7. You might ask why or how is that the case? There is the line with bishop d6 here, and after bishop g2, short castle, c6, knight c3, knight bd7. There was actually a very recent game between Andy Woodward and Niels Grandelius at the FIDE Grand Swiss. Woodward played knight d2, and here Grandelius went for the move bishop e7. So we have exactly the same position, just with the extra move a5. And funnily enough, in that game, Woodward played the move queen b3, and Grandelius anyway went a5 here. So at least the move queen b3 we have completely cut out, because if the pawn is already in a5 here, white would certainly not play the move queen b3. Apart from that, it's not, I'm going to be honest with you, it's not entirely clear if the position with a5 is objectively a much better version for black, but still, at least humanly speaking, it does seem like a5 definitely cannot be a worse version for black. Now let's go back to that line. After c6, we were talking about the move knight d2 and knight d7, and after e4, we can liquidate in the center and immediately get counterplay like this. There are also other moves here, the most important one being b3 in my opinion, and now we do want to go for b6, and now we see another important reason why a5 can be beneficial, because we want to go bishop a6, and from there on it's going to be so nice for us to have the pawn on a5 already. Just imagine the pawn being on a7, then all of it is a bit awkward, and here the bishop is protected nicely on a6, and apart from that, often we even have ideas to play rook a7 followed by rook d7. For example, a3, which was played in some games here, rook a7 is a very nice idea, because often we can take on c4 and then go rook d7 to immediately put pressure on the pawn on d4. Knight d2 is mostly played here. Now we want to go for b5, and now we don't have to sacrifice this pawn. There are a couple of games here which go as follows: c5, b4, knight a4, and I never really understood why white went for this line. The computer gives some small edge for white, like 0.10 or 0.20. Anyway, later on we'll go to zeros. And the position which comes out is something like this typically, and black will just at some moment take on a4. You could also do that right away. And what happens here is that we get some position like this, which, yeah, at least if I look at it, I would certainly take black, because white has a pretty poor pawn structure and black doesn't have any weaknesses. Of course, white does have the bishop pair, but we're going to get the knight to f6, maybe to d5 later as well. Pawn on d4 is going to be a weakness, which we can attack with bishop f6, and the bishop on b2 is just really not taking part in the game at all, you could say. So now let's go to the move queen c2, which is just covering the pawn on c4. And now comes a very rare suggestion, which is the move a4. a5 itself has really, I would even argue, become mainstream by now. It's still quite a rare line, but many strong players do play it. But they do it with the move knight c6 here. This is kind of the main point. Now to argue that queen c2 is running into knight b4. And I've analyzed this line myself, but I don't really feel that comfortable with the position after a3, which is the main move. Now black continues by taking on c4, queen takes c4, a4. And black's plan is to go bishop d7 followed by knight a5 and then knight b3. But if white plays precisely here with knight c3, bishop d7, and now let's say queen d3, knight a5, and now bishop g5, black is certainly fine, has a very solid position, but I still would definitely take white here, just because he has the space advantage and has ideas like knight e5, and our bishop is still kind of struggling to find a nice square overall. Certainly playable as well, but I really prefer my move a4 here, which I'm about to suggest to you. Also because of the fact that there, when I checked now, only 9 games in the online database. I had 1 game here with the black pieces against Gabriel Sargsyan, the strong Armenian grandmaster. And apart from that, Magnus has played it once, but there are not many games here at all. And actually, I'm quite surprised by that because a4 is a very natural move. We've just played a5 and then we just want to gain even more space on the queen side by going a4. Now b3 is definitely not the question anymore for white, so this is already a benefit of going a4, and we're still staying flexible with the knight on b8. That's kind of the main thing. Sometimes we still have the idea to go knight c6, in other cases we want to go for knight d7. For example, if white goes knight bd2 with the typical idea to go for e4 now we can use the fact that the knight will be misplaced on d2 by going knight c6, and now white is not going to be able to play e4 anymore because then the pawn on d4 is just going to be hanging, so he cannot do that. So knight d2 has been played, is the most common move in this position by a number of games, but is already quite a big inaccuracy. After knight c6, black doesn't have any problems whatsoever because he has ideas like knight b4. If a3 comes, it's also quite weakening, and we have ideas like bishop d7 followed by knight a5. And now with a much better version, because after cd5 we can always trade back with a pawn. So knight d2 is already quite comfortable for black. a3 is the move which Sargsyan played against me, and now we are transposing, or almost transposing quite quickly after bishop f4. Now knight d7, we are transposing to another line which can be reached via the line with bishop b4 check. A very topical one. If after bishop d2, now bishop e7, bishop d2, short castle. Now black often goes for this approach with a5 and knight bd7, and there is this transposition here. However, what we are gaining with this line is that here, you can see, if you check it with the online database, we're going to transpose and see some other games which are going to be reached via the bishop b4 check move order. But now white has already committed himself to this move a3, which is not necessarily the most critical line in the bishop b4 check line. That's the main thing here. And with the move a3, white has already said that, okay, my queen side is going to be worthless, and he's never going to be really able to advance this pawn anymore because we can always capture en passant, and then white has quite a poor pawn structure on the queen side. So after rook d1, you will be able to see that there are a couple of games here from the bishop b4 check move order. Now knight d4, we can reach a pretty good stone wall, just with the difference that we cannot go for the move f5 because the pawn on a4 would be hanging, but instead we can trade on c3. And however white recaptures, it does have some drawbacks. If b takes c3, we have the very nice move b5. When if white would capture, he would actually already be a bit worse because those two pawns are going to be very difficult to hold in the long run. We have ideas like knight b6, knight c4, or also bishop a6 protecting the pawn, then going rook c8. This is already pretty tough for white. He should go for c5, but also here black has pretty nice play with g5 followed by f5. Apart from that, queen takes e3 can also be answered with ideas with g5 and f5 later on. First we can go knight b6, knight d2, and now g5, bishop e3 and f5 with a very nice stone wall for white, because white is not going to be able to have any play on the queen side. If c5, always just knight d7, and he's not going to be able to generate anything on the queen side whatsoever. I think that rook d1 in this position is probably the most critical move, which still keeps the knight on b1 flexible. And now we have already played moves a5 and a4, and now we have to make a decision with the knight on b8. We have to develop it. And firstly, my idea was actually to recommend the move knight c6 here. But I did not fully feel comfortable with the position arising after bishop f4. It is still very much playable. After knight b4, we take on c4, and white has to be very precise to get even a hope of an advantage. But he can do so if he plays knight a3, getting ready to capture on c4 with the knight. And after bishop d7, now knight e5 is a very precise move. And now we get sort of the same position, which or a very similar position which we can reach if we would play the move knight c6 here anyway, instead of a4. So I didn't really want to allow that. Instead, we can go for the move knight bd7 here anyway, because now we can already argue that we gained a lot of space with a5 and a4, and still we are keeping the pawn on c7 flexible, which can play a role if white goes for the move knight bd2, for example, which now does make a lot of sense because we don't have knight c6 anymore. But now we can play for c5 immediately. And in this structures, the knight on d2 is going to be misplaced. And actually one of the best lines for white is later on to do something in the center and then to regroup the knight via b1 to c3 anyway. Apart from that, knight c3 is another possibility here. I should also mention that whenever white goes bishop f4, then typically we want to take on c4, and after queen takes c4, now we want to go knight to d5, which often has the idea to just take on f4 and gain the bishop pair. This is kind of a typical way of playing here. If white goes knight c3, this is quite a concrete line as well, one of the computer's top choices. Now we take on c4, generally a very typical approach that whenever white puts the knight here, then we can just grab the pawn. And knight e5 is the computer's top recommendation. And after knight b6, those positions, he does give some very small advantage to white, like 0-20 or something like that. But black is a pawn up for the moment, and there is this very nice idea to regroup the knight, which I didn't really see that often in those positions. The idea is knight e8 followed by knight d6, and then we can kick out the knight from e5 with f6. And even though it's quite obvious to me that white does have sufficient compensation here, I don't think that black has the worst chances too, because we have a very simple plan. We can go king h8, then maybe queen e8 followed by queen f7 or queen g6 or queen h5, or also to do the same with the bishop. We could also go bishop e8 and trying to activate the bishop like this. And it's not so clear how white is gonna continue in the center. He could push d5 at some moment. But after d5, first of all, we could generally think of trading on d5. We could also think of just keeping everything closed with e5. And still, white is not winning back this pawn on c4 so quickly. So this was kind of a small introduction into the line with a5. Generally, what's the most important for me is that here we have a very easy repertoire. This is the most important thing, because I'm not a big fan of studying some long and forcing lines, and having an easy approach to a repertoire. And with this, we have so many different move orders covered, and we can sort of always go for this line with a5. Many of our opponents are not going to be so familiar with it, especially with some of the later ideas. a5, still some of our more experienced and stronger opponents might know, but especially after queen c2, a4, I think that almost everyone is going to be out of book already, and it's a very novel approach, and on the other hand, also objectively a very sound approach. So thank you for watching this video, and I'm going to see you in the following ones where we're going to have a closer look at some of the lines. See you then.